Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Inside Look. I am Tyson Alger, joined here by Ken Woody, and it's the end of the season, guys. The Oregon Ducks 2025 football season ended in a Peach Bowl loss to Indiana, 56-22. In a sense, it's not a huge surprise that maybe Oregon lost this game, but I'm not going to lie, Ken, I was pretty shocked in the way that it happened. Isaac and I were in Atlanta this week. There was Indiana red everywhere, and I tell you what, the moment Dante Moore threw that pick six interception on the first play of the game, my ears are still ringing from that. It was an intense environment, and it didn't seem like the Ducks were really able to recover from getting behind early. What were your impressions from Oregon's final game of the season?
Well, you had the feeling right after the interception, which was devastating. You know, how's the team going to bounce back from this? They did with that subsequent 14-play touchdown drive, and they looked like the Ducks of old, but the defense couldn't stop them. Indiana's offense scored 5 of their first 6 drives, touchdowns. They had 4 touchdown drives under 2 minutes, and really where the game was lost, third down conversions. Indiana was 11 for 13, which is 78%, which is 20% higher than usually the number 1 team in the country. The Ducks just couldn't stop them on third down. That really is where the game frittered away.
It is pretty crazy when you do look at the stats of this game, because the total yardage is similar, passing yardage is similar, rushing yardage is similar, but it's that execution in key situations that you're talking about that really separated this game, where Oregon kept shooting itself in the foot with not only Dante Moore's interception, but then the 2 fumbles that they had in that first half. Indiana, on the other hand, I've seen a lot of really good quarterback play over the years covering college football, Ken, but the way that Fernando Mendoza was able to just pinpoint his receivers and hit them exactly where they needed to be was really, I think, the difference in the game there.
Well, it might be the best performance I've ever seen, and he was never really rushed. When he was rushed, the Ducks were blitzing, they were out of position, and he would scramble. He got 38 yards rushing, and all those yards were on third down, and they converted third down. So it looked like he was just playing catch out there. He got the ball off quickly. The Ducks defensive line apparently missed the team bus, and they were trying, they were working at it, but they just couldn't get hands up. I think the Oregon corners played a lot better than they did in the first game. I mean, you can't get closer and more intimate in defending some of those back shoulder fades, but you need guys with their hands up in front of the quarterback so he doesn't have the perfect throw. They're just so 17 out of 20. Those 17 passes were perfect.
They were right on the money, and it was even from our press box seats, which in Mercedes-Benz Stadium are pretty far up there. You could just see him hitting guys right exactly where they needed to be. So my question for you is, we talked about how it's hard for a team to beat a team twice, with Indiana beating Oregon earlier in October, coming into this game, and then we saw an even tougher result for the Ducks. So what do you think was kind of the difference between a 10-point loss, which we saw in October, versus this one, which we saw in the Peach Bowl?
Well, I think the big difference in the second game is that Oregon beat Oregon. And, the first play, when I saw them lined up, they had a nice television shot, but Oregon's receiver is wide to the left of the formation. The defensive back is playing outside the receiver by 1 to 2 yards. And so if you want to throw a pass right there, you got a problem just from the way they are lined up. What you need is for this receiver to come down and try to get this guy's feet turned so that he can turn there, or just drive him off so deep that he can get there. He did neither, and Dante just threw it out there as if the defensive back wasn't there. And that's, he's a smarter quarterback than that, and there's a lot of talk about what went wrong and so on, but Oregon mentally just was not there. And you could see it with the offensive line. It's one of their poorest performances that I can remember. And, but you got to give credit to Indiana. They have really an outstanding team, and they were operating flawlessly.
Yeah, Indiana will be moving on to the national championship, where they will face Miami. not the expected national championship that I think we all predicted at the start of the year, but that's kind of how modern college football works these days. Looking at Oregon in the large scale, obviously this was a disappointing loss to end the season, and it feels even, and maybe even rougher because of the way last season ended with the Rose Bowl demolition against Ohio State. But ultimately the Ducks end 13-2 on the year. Another successful, I mean, very successful season when it comes down to it. They were part of the Final Four. They are getting a large part of this team back for next year. But before we look into next year, just your overall thoughts on this group of Oregon Ducks who, coming into the season, we didn't know how good they could be. And they played good enough for us to be disappointed here at the end, right?
Well, right. They engendered a lot of emotional attachment, if you will. A lot of Oregon fans feel like they're the part of the family, and they love the Ducks. And the Ducks were entertaining. They were exciting. They were in some tough games, and they came from behind. They established a lot of really good things. And the one thing about Lanning, and he mentioned this in his post-game interview, is that he's really interested in his players beyond the game. And that's great. That's great. Although when you get devastated in the game, you go, maybe the game's a little more important than something else. But by and large, Oregon just didn't get it done. A thing I learned very early in my coaching career from Jerry Fry, he was talking to some Hall of Fame coaches, including me, and he said, remember this, players don't get up saying, I'm going to play poorly today. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to do this. That is, you got to go from that. And so I would advise fans to keep that in mind too, and we can be critical, but we should not be judgmental. And I think there's a difference in how we view that.
So looking forward to 2026, we have seen kind of the avalanche of roster announcements come in the days since the season ended. We've seen essentially Oregon's entire defensive line announce that they're returning, whether it be Tatum Tuioti, Mateo Uiagalelei, Amari Washington, Bear Alexander. We've seen some players on the offensive line like Poncho announce their return. It does seem like the Ducks do have a good core of this team that got a lot of experience next year coming back. I guess the big question still remains is whether Dante Moore stays or goes, but we also did see a potential replacement brought in from him this week with Nebraska transfer Dylan Raiola.
Well, I think the fact that Poncho is coming back, those guys are really close, center and quarterback, and I think that might be some inducement, plus all the good receivers he has, great receivers. There's something that really can be made there, and I think that Moore is a very mature person and a quarterback who needs more reps. And the one thing about your number one draft pick or number two is the teams that are drafting you stink, and you look at them, the Jets or the Oakland Raiders, who wants to, they got terrible, you think you had bad pass protection against Indiana, it's going to be worse for those guys. So I hope he considers strongly that what another year of top-ranked experience at Oregon could do for him down the road, because he does have a lot of people of import who really think that he's got it. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of when.
Well, Ken, I've sure enjoyed doing these videos with you this season, and thank you to everyone for following us along week by week. It's something that we tried out at the start of the year, and you've stuck with us throughout 15, 16 more weeks. Ken, what are your off-season plans? And now that we get to take a little bit of a break from our Tuesday morning filming session, the world's your oyster. What are you going to do with your off-season?
Well, I think I'm going to sleep just a little bit more on Tuesday mornings for one. But
awesome. Well, for Ken, I'm Tyson. This has been the Inside Look, and thank you so much for joining us.